Living my bucolic life, we have 3 city strife. Horses, chicks, and dogs, they are my neighbors. I cook and some spin, and move the horses into the barn. Then time to move them out again. Red carts, green pastures, beautiful my houses. The view I see each day when I arise. This life pleases me, as it is plain to see. I'm living my bucolic life.
Welcome back. So this week's project is going to be kind of a fun getting into the holiday spirit type. And we are doing our pet, our fur baby Christmas, you know, because why not? So there's going to be 3 projects and I'm going to do all 3. At least that's my goal right now. The first one is a little calendar that they have you putting dog treats in. I'm sure you could change it around and use it for other things, but we're going to use the little dog treats. We're gonna, this pattern comes with a little applique pattern. We're gonna make, actually gonna make 3 cat and 3 dog, but I'll only actually show you making 1, but you know, you'll get the idea. And then a little gift bag just for fun, okay? So pretty easy, pretty lighthearted. I'm hoping, I know there's all kinds of different applique techniques and special interfacings and things we're gonna be using, but I'm gonna put some Christmas music on in the background off camera so I don't get a copyright strike and everything, and try to get in the mood. So let me show you the fabric that I'm going to be using. I did buy some green felt. This is that 72-inch wide felt, and it was on sale. So I got 1.5 yards of that, and I hope that's enough. I also have some red velvet ribbon, some fun ruffled lace for trims. I'm going to use some more of actually this black flannel to use for my appliques. And I have this Sherpa stuff that I was using for my little dog coats a few projects back that I'm going to be using as trim. So yeah, I think this is going to be fun. I do need to come up with a little piece of brown for the trunk of the tree. I have a lot of gold I can use for the star up there. So let me go ahead, open my pattern, and I think that we're going to do the calendar one first. Okay, so I'm actually going to be cutting out everything that I need to cut out of my felt at the same time. Let's see if I can get you off to a angle here so you can see things. On the tree first, there is several strips that just go straight across that are for the little front pockets here. And what I'm going to do is just cut those with a rotary cutter. They are 1 3/4 inches tall. So I'm just going to get my rotary cutter and ruler and cut, you know, a few strips going straight across my whole long felt here at 1 3/4 inches, and then just cut that long strip into the appropriate length. Actually, let's see, 1, 2, I think 1 strip might do it. Let me cut 1 strip, get it divided into sections, because you only need 1 of each of these, and then we'll move on. I want to show you 1 row at 1 3/4 inches straight across of a 72-inch wide piece of felt. Fit perfectly with like 1 inch or so to spare. So that's good. Something was whacked with my rotary cutters. I used 2 different ones. I guess they all need new wheels because my edges are terrible. I'll just, before I actually use them, I'll come back and make that look prettier because, wow, you know. The thing that I noticed is they have the numbers written on here, okay? I was reading the instructions to try to figure out how they're going to want you to transfer those exact numbers, and they don't. They just say use paint or a marker according to manufacturer's instructions. So I think that before I actually put this on to the tree, I'm gonna paint those numbers on, and I'll show you that when the time comes. I just thought I would give you a heads up that way. So let me go ahead and get the main part of this tree cut out, this big piece, and I need to cut 2 of my felt and 2 of interfacing. And I am going to be using a stiff interfacing for this project just because, you know, it's a craft. For the little stockings, they are going to have you line each stocking, so you need to cut 2 out of your main fabric, which for me is my felt, and also 2 for the lining. And just, you know, the dog and the cat one, they're the exact same pattern piece. It's just that one has a dog and one has a cat. So I am cutting 6 sets of 2 of these little stocking pieces out. I'm only going to be making one of the big gift bags, so I cut 2 of those out of my felt also. And then on the back of the felt, there's a casing that a wooden dowel goes through, and I'm going to cut 1 of these. And I wanted to tell you, I bought 1.5 yards, and I still have a decent amount left, you know, not a whole lot, but enough to, you know, cut a few more stockings out if I wanted to. I'm just going to set this aside and with my other felt scraps. And then I need to get a yellow and a brown scrap out. Let me see if I even have anything like that handy. Well, I think I can cut 1 brown one out of this. Maybe, yeah, no, this one. Okay, so I'm gonna cut my brown ones out of this, and I have a gold that I'm going to use, but I have gold paint, so I'll probably, you know, paint it also. So just letting you know that. But let me get this. I need 2 of these little tree trunks cut out of this, 2 little stars cut out of this, my casing cut out of this, and then I should be done with my felt. Okay, so with the felt done, it's time to do the messy part, which is the sherpa looking stuff here, and I know from experience this makes a big mess. It sheds everywhere. This cuff here is the one that goes around the stocking, so I'm going to need 6 of these, and it is almost 4 inches wide. So I think I'm just going to cut a long strip out of this, again, that is 3 3/4 inches wide, and then cut that strip into separate little pieces. And this bigger cuff here is the one that goes around the top of the gift bag, so I'll cut that one out separately too. And just because my rotary cutters were acting so ill-behaved a moment ago, I'm just going to cut this with scissors. Just put my little ruler up there where it needs to go, and then just come along here and trim it. And then I will just have to get my vacuum and clean off all the little things that are about to start shedding off here. Okay, with those done, the last piece of this stuff I need to cut out is these pom-poms, which are basically gathered circles. And so I'm gonna make my pom-poms out of this stuff. Welcome to the next day. I wanted to show you, first of all, I've gone ahead and cut 6 pairs of the stocking. I'm going to use the same black flannel for the lining, so I've got that cut out, okay? And I am going to use the same black flannel for my appliques. And the instructions, they're going to call for using a fusible backed product. And I have a few packs over at my table I'll show you. Basically, it's got all of the fusible stuff on one side and paper on the other. Let me go grab a couple. There's different names. Let me see here. I've had these in my stash for a long time. This is Wonder Under with the paper backing. You want with the paper backing, not without. This is Heat and Bond, and it has the paper backing. So that's what you want. There's different brands. Just make sure it feels like a texture on one side and then just plain paper on the other, okay? And I'm just going to use this little scrap here. It's going to be for my paw print. And no, that doesn't fit on there, but, well, actually it does. Huh, look at that. But what I was going to say is I could fuse this on, cut these parts separately because they're going to go on separately, and just, you know, find a place for them on here. But I just turned my iron on. Hopefully it is hot enough. The first thing I'm doing is putting it so the fusible side, well, actually the first thing I'm going to do is iron my fabric. I want to make sure that it is nice and flat before I put this on. Put my fusible side down so the paper is up, okay, so it won't stick to my iron. And just take a few moments ironing it on, okay? Just give me a minute to get this pressed. Once this little piece is on, I'm going to actually come back right now and just trim around it so I don't have all of this stuff confusing me, and then we'll work on this a little more. Okay, once you think that you have it ironed on really well, see if just in the corner you can peel off the paper to reveal that the fusible stuff is stuck onto your fabric, okay? If it is, great, you are in business. Okay, I'm going to use a piece of carbon paper. I've got a pack of this stuff. I think this, yeah, this is a Staples thing I got years ago. I'm sure they still have them, you know. But what I'm doing is just placing my carbon paper on top here where I know that I can get a good placement, and tracing. You could, if you didn't want to do this, just cut out the individual pieces, pin them onto your piece here, and either trace around them or cut around them or whatever, you know. Lots of ways to attack it. This is just the way I'm choosing to right now. And by doing it with a pen instead of just something transparent, I can see what I'm doing. But make sure that if you're doing a applique that, you know, has a specific direction, you're aware of it, because I'm tracing on the back, so I want to make sure that my pattern is upside down. This goes both ways, so, you know, it doesn't really matter on this, but if you're doing letters or something, that could be important to remember. So now those are all transferred over there. And I'm just going to get my scissors. Actually, I'm going to use my little fiskars because I'm cutting through all of the paper and everything too here. And trim out my little pieces. So really, I don't think there's going to be any rhyme or reason to the way I put this thing together, because I can't do just one project at a time, because I'm kind of doing sets at a time. So, like for example, I cut out these little pieces and I don't want to lose them. You know, it'd be easy to lose a little toe. So I'm going to go ahead and fuse them onto the appropriate piece. These go on the bag, and I only need one. So I'm going to take one of these bag pieces off. I don't think that it has to be, you know, dead set exactly in the same place, but I want to make it pretty close. So what I'm going to do, just for simplicity here, is I'm pinning the bottom part of my pattern to my fabric here, so I can just pull it down. And I'm going to do this over on my ironing board, but I just want to show you for right now. I'm going to just set the little applique piece underneath where it is on here, so that when I go to iron it, it's in the right spot. So that's how I'm going to do it. Just peel the backing paper off. Come on. Come on, backing paper. All right, so peeling the backing paper off. Here's my little piece. Here it is on my tissue paper, lining that up, and then just kind of setting it down and straightening it out, okay? So I hope you can see there's black under there. I lift this up, it's in the right place. I'm going to carry this over to my ironing board right now so I don't get anything messed up. Get the last of these put on. I will use a press cloth on the top of this while I press it, because I need to put a whole lot of steam and everything, and this is just a polyester felt, so we don't want to mess that up. Okay, so I've got it ironed on. I'm just using one of my Teflon sheets here. It has a hole in it. There's a reason for that, but that's another story for another day. I just put that on, and this is just, you know, from baking Teflon. And press it really carefully. Once I had it pressed from the front, you know, fairly well, I did flip it over and iron it from the back. So at this point, these are stuck on pretty good. I could leave it like that, but I don't want to. I'm going to go ahead and use my zigzag on my machine and zigzag around these so that they're going to be anchored on really well in case, you know, it ever runs into any friction or something. I don't want them to come off because once the bag is sewn, it's very difficult to put them back on. Okay, first of all, your width, you want it fairly wide, and I actually had my stitch length a little too long over here, so I've shortened it down to a pretty short stitch length. So if you've done this before and you're a pro, you know, just chill out for a moment. If you've never done it, when you're coming around an outside curve like this, when you need to make the curve, stop so your needle is out here on the outside edge, okay? And then lift your presser foot and turn. So that way you have everything turning nicely. Now I'm going to come down to an inside curve here. Okay, so coming into this inside corner, I want to stop with my needle on the inside, okay? And then I've turned it again so that my foot is lined up, and I'm going back up. Oops, took too long and everything came off there. So now I'm coming to an outside turn again. I'm stopping with my needle on the outside, pivoting just a bit. And I can go a lot slower when I'm a lot faster when I'm not explaining it, but I want to make it really clear here. Okay, so I'm coming around to an outside curve here. Stopping with my needle on the outside, pivoting it here. And it just makes things a little bit neater, that's all. I mean, it's a dog gift Christmas bag. We don't need to be perfect here. So, let me pull her out here using festive scissors, as we do. Okay, so now looking at my zigzag, is it perfect? Absolutely not, but it's going to hold that on really well, and I don't have to worry about it wanting to come off. So I'm going to go ahead and do around my little pads here. I wanted to point something out that just happened because I'm using up my scraps, you know, that I just have laying about, and I don't know which brand is which. The first little piece I used, the backing paper, was like regular paper, and doing this worked fine. This one, the backing paper, is more like a parchment paper. And I went to trace around my little cat and nothing came out because the carbon paper won't stick to the parchment paper. So I'm going to need to do something different. I just wanted to point that out. If it's not working for you, well, you're not the only one. Okay, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the back of this girl here. Just enough to keep her tacky. Just a bit of glue stick. About, okay. I think that they have one specifically made so that they're removable, but I don't have that handy, so we're just going to go like this. That way I can pop this on here, get my scissors, and just cut out. I'm going to cut her out in general, and then I'll cut all the little details out. And I think that's going to work, and then once I have it cut out here, I'll just lift off my paper, move it to a new spot, and cut out the next one. Okay, so what I need to show you is I kind of, you know, I was telling you, always keep them the same way. Well, I kind of flopped my images back and forth, so I'm going to have stockings going opposite directions. I don't think that's a big deal. But once I had these on, I was looking, it's like, I don't even know that I want a machine stitch around it. You know, I just... especially because this is a flannel, I just didn't feel like it. So since, you know, it is decoration, I am going back to my childhood here, and I mixed some metallic gold paint with some glue, and I am just going to put it around the edge. Do you remember when we used to do, oops, I need to open it, stuff like that, and then maybe put glitter on it or things, but this should hopefully dry so it looks like just a nice little gold edge. That's my thought right now. So that's what I'm going to do. So that means I'm going to need to set these aside and let them dry probably overnight before I do the next step on them. Okay, so I've got all of my stockings over there drying, and I want to use my same glue with gold paint because I think it's going to show up pretty well to paint the numbers on these stripes that go on the little calendar thing. So what I've done, this is just the first one with the number 1 and number 2. I just transferred over where the dividing line is, if you can see, with my heat erasable pen, so that's going to disappear. And then I am just going to freehand the numbers, and we will see how it goes. This may be a mistake, but at this point, I think it's okay. So there is a number 1, you know, and over here, oops, I got an air bubble. That's never fun. Well, that's okay. And then here is a number 2. See if I can find a straight pen to pop these air bubbles. Well, it's not going to want to pop. Okay, well, I think that's close enough. That's what I'm going to do so that, again, when all of these are dry, then we're going to be able to sew them together. But you can see, I think it's going to show up. If not, I'll come back and do a second coat on it. Okay, so I've got all of that prep work done, you know, everything that needed numbers painted on it, the edging around all of my little cats and dogs, and that's all over on a table to the side drying. And so what I'm going to work on right now is the first thing, you know, they want you to do the tree first in the instructions, so that's where I'm going to start. And they actually want you to start doing some nice edge stitching on those long strip pieces that I put the numbers on. Can't do that because they're still wet. So instead what I'm going to do is transfer over the markings on this tree pattern piece just to one of these. I cut 2. This is going to be the backing piece. It doesn't need any marks on it. So I need to change the battery in my camera, grab my ruler, a pen, and I'll be right back. Over here at my ironing board, because before I can put any marks on my tree, I need to interface all of these parts. So I have interfacing on this one. I'm using a medium weight, fairly crisp interfacing. I don't have enough super heavy weight to do 2 trees and everything else, so I'm just using my medium weight. It's this one. It's this one. It's the weird thing where it says, can you see that? It says featherweight, but it feels like a medium crisp weight, you know? That's it. So I've got it fused onto one of these. I need to fuse it onto the other tree, and I'm going to do both of my little tree trunks and both of my stars. Okay, so now that the interfacing is on, what I need to do is get a couple reference points for each one of these lines. So at the bottom corner, right here, that's the point that I'm punching out. I think that's going to be able to give me all of the assistance I need. So give me a moment to get these punched out. Now there is a stitching line marked. That stitching is at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm just going to pay attention to that. Down here at the bottom, there's 2 dots that are marking where the little tree trunk goes. And I am really, really hoping that my white heat erasable pen will mark on the felt. I have not tried it yet. The white pen can be fickle sometimes. So I'm just going to reach through the little holes that I just punched and color in those dots. Sometimes this white pen, it takes it about 30 seconds or so of drying time before it actually appears. So hopefully it will. And then once I have these marked, I'm going to be able to lift up my pattern piece and just use a ruler to connect the dots horizontally. Okay, so then I have 2 dots here. I'm just going to draw my line straight across from dot to dot. And if you can see up here where that line is starting to appear, these white pens, love them dearly, but it takes a while for them to show up. So it looks terribly faint in the beginning, I'm just going to wait it out. And then draw a line vertically. You know, I can line up this piece of my ruler with that line to make sure I get a 90-degree angle here. And I'm not really paying a lot of attention exactly how tall I make this, about 2 inches, but it's just going to be the width of that strip that I put on. Okay, so I've got my lines drawn on, as you can see, and I've got one of my little pocket pieces here. And I think that this one is dry enough that I can go ahead and show you the next step. So on the instructions it says just put a row of stitching across the top. I think that's just to reinforce it so it won't want to stretch, because you know felt will stretch. So it doesn't look like you're folding it over, you're just stitching it at the cut edge, okay? So about a 1/16 of an inch in, or even an 1/8 of an inch in, I'm just gonna change over to some green thread and just do a row of straight stitching just along this top edge of all of my pocket pieces. Okay, so I have my stitching line across the top of my little pocket pieces here, and so I'm just going to get started placing them on. I might as well. Let me just pin them on in a couple key places here. I'm going to need to edge stitch it. And I'm going to, you know, kind of like I did up here, but come around the edges. And also wherever there's a dividing line, I need to do stitching up and down that dividing line also. So I think I'm just going to put on one at a time, stitch it, and then come back and put on the next one and the next one. Okay, so I've got all my numbers sewn on, my little pockets and everything. And the next step is to put on some trim. And on the pattern envelope, they have rickrack going straight across. I don't have white rickrack, and I was playing with, you know, different things, and I think what might work is this scalloped edged lace. I think it kind of gives the same little scallopy look at the bottom that will give the effect of, you know, the bottoms of trees and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and basically along the same stitching line that I just put on the bottom here, I'm just going to change my thread to white now and stitch a piece of this going straight across at each level like that. I'm looking at this here, looking ahead, you know, as we do, and it's just edge stitched. It's not stitched and flipped. Very good to know. So yay, I can go ahead and do that. I guess because it is, you know, felt and things like that. But what that tells me is also that I need to come back and trim my interfacing a little bit better. But I think I'm going to do that after I have the two pieces sandwiched together, so I only have to do that once. So let me switch my thread to white and go ahead and sew this on. So on the instructions, what they told you to do with the rickrack is fold it under on the ends and then sew it, because, you know, the ends are going to be exposed. And I was trying that with this lace and it did not want to behave. So I just ended up cutting it. You know, I think that when I get to the point where I'm making it final pretties, I can trim my little lace and everything, but my ends are raw. I don't think it's going to fray. If it does feel like it's going to fray, I can get my, you know, clear nail polish and dab some of that on the ends, and I think that that will be okay. So I need to set this aside for a second and grab my little tree trunks here. And since we're not flipping them right side out, what I need to do, put this back on here, is edge stitch it around the edge. Looks like at a 1/4 inch seam allowance here. I think that after I do that, I'm probably going to retrim it just so that none of my interfacing wants to peek out, you know. But let me go ahead and stitch this around here at a 1/4 inch. Alrighty, so I still have the white thread in the machine. I don't think that's the end of the world. And I'm actually trimming this. So I'm not going to have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to have something, you know, smaller, but I don't think that's going to hurt anything there, you know, that way everything's nice and tight on the edges. I need to center this probably under this number 21. My dots are kind of hidden by my lace, but that is in the very center where that number 21 is. So I need to get this snuck underneath there And they say just baste straight across the section. So I think what I'm going to do, since I have the white thread in my machine, is just on top of this white lace here, I'm going to put another row of stitching right there to anchor my little tree trunk on. Okay, so I've got that stitched on there. And there's another strip, long strip of green felt around here somewhere that I need to go grab because it's a casing, and you're going to need to, they call for putting a dowel in the casing. I was looking at my bag of stuff, and I have these really long skewers that are like 1/4 inch wide dowels, and I think that that's going to work. So, you know, I think these were dollar store things. I don't know, it says $2.99. I don't know where I got them. I've had them for a while. Let me track down that long piece, and I need to get my back of my tree here because the casing it's going to go in is going to go across the back. Alright, so raise you up here. It looks like the back casing line is the same as the lower pocket line. So I am just going to set this here. Again, reach through with my pen, draw a few dots, and connect it. And that is going to show me where the bottom of my casing is going to get sewn on. So this piece number 9 here is my casing. And it should just reach straight across here, and it does. Okay, that's good. So what I need to do is edge stitch. Well, you cannot see that. Sorry about that. Turn on this light. Okay, hopefully you can see a little better. This is it here. And so I just have it place the bottom edge of my casing along that line I just drew. I'm going to need to edge stitch it along the bottom and top here, all the way across, and they are calling for a dowel 3/4 inch. Wow, a 3/4 inch dowel. Well, that's pretty darn substantial. I'll tell you what, since I am using my little skinny skewers, I'm going to put 2 of them in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a row across the top, a row across the bottom, but I'm also going to do 1 row down the middle, and that way I can put 2 different skewers in. I think that'll be good. Alright, I've got them on, or my little casing put in, and I've got splinters on the ends of these things. I just wanted to see how it was going to look. I need to take them back out again. And I'm not too sure exactly how this is going to work. There's got to be something else besides just some dowels at the bottom to keep it straight. But, you know, I think the 2 smaller ones is going to work to keep that nice and flat. I kind of like how that looks. Of course, I do need to trim them because they are sticking out the sides. But we will work on that later. What I need to do right now, since this is my back piece, is sandwich my back and front together and do that 1/4 inch seam allowance stitching that they have marked on here all the way around everything. So I'm just going to use my clips, I think, and clip it together really well. And then just start stitching it at a 1/4 inch seam allowance the best I can. And once I have that done, I'm going to come back and trim it like I trimmed around the trunk and everything so that it'll have a nice clean edge. So, looks like all of this stitching on here made the front warp up a little bit. So I may have a little bit of stretching or something. And if the back is a little wide, I'm going to base my 1/4 inch seam allowance on the front, which is smaller. All the stitching here probably, you know, condensed it. And then I'll just be trimming it so it'll look even when it's all done. Okay, so I just noticed something I skipped here because it had me confused. What they actually wanted you to do before you stitch the 2 sides together is basically fuse the 2 pieces together. Put more of that paper back fusible stuff on one, peel the paper off and fuse it to the other side. I'm glad I didn't do that because honestly, there was quite a bit that I had to trim off the sides after I stitched it just to get it to line up, you know, probably about a 1/4 inch. That was a little bit askew, you know, and I'm just chalking that up to all of the little stretching that felt can do and all of the stitching, you know. It's like when you quilt something, it has a tendency to change its shape a little bit. But this is it. I have stitched all the way around it and then trimmed it. So now I need to work on my little star. Where are you, little star? Hang on, let me find, oh, here she is. Okay, so on the little tree pattern piece, you can see that the bottom feet of the star are on there. So what I'm going to do is take that off, put them right sides together here, and I'm going to leave the two bottom feet open, but do my 1/4 inch stitching all the way around here, these top 3, you know, points of the little star. And I need to make sure I have this trimmed, but then I can just slide it over the top of my little piece here. At least that's my plan right now. So let me go ahead and get these stitched together and trimmed together, 3 of the 5 points. Okay, I got those top 3 points sewn and I'm trimming them, and I'm just going to trim the bottom 2 so they kind of match what I've done up here at the top, you know. Make them a little more pointy and a little less curvy. Like that. I think that will work. Okay. So now here's my little star. If I can open up these bottom 2, come on, and slide it over the top here, close it up, and now I need to stitch this. I'm kind of nervous because I don't know how that's going to work on the back, if it's going to line up exactly. So you know what I'm going to do? Let me tell you what I'm going to do. I am going to flip this over, and on the back I'm going to stick some stitch witchery in here underneath these 2 little points just to hold them securely in place so they're not going to go anywhere. Okay, so over here I got my little piece of stitch witchery, and I'm just going to stick it underneath here with the scissors and fuse it on. Had to move you while I hit the steam because you know what that does to the camera. Okay, and so now I think that that's going to be good. Let me flip it over and do the same thing back here. Got my little piece, and you know what, I'm just going to stick it all in there. Okay, and then get that fused on. Good, moving the camera because of the steam. All right, so now it's very secure. I'm going to go ahead and stitch it looking at the front piece with my yellow thread, and hopefully we're not going to be looking at too closely at the back. Okay, that actually worked out pretty good. When I stitched it in, you know, at least a 1/4 inch there, so I had enough room, and it ended up matching on the back pretty well, you know, for a felt creation to be. So I think there's one more thing I need to do to the back of the little star to hold it up. Okay, so the last thing I need to do here is this is the back side. I need to get my little D-ring that I just pulled out of my stash of buckle kind of stuff, and I'm going to whip stitch this on. It's going to be a little bit tricky to do that actually, but I'll do my best. Down here where I have all of the tree felt and everything behind it, that's where I'm going to do my stitching. And this is going to be the hanger. So once I have this stitched on and I put my dowels cut to the right size, of course, on the bottom, this is going to be finished. Good morning and welcome to the next day. So we're going to do the stockings now. And in the instructions, the first thing that they want you to do is sew together the outside edges of the lining pieces and sew together the outside edges of the stocking pieces. So, you know, I'm just going to make sure that I have one stocking piece that is plain, and I'm going to go grab one of my little ones that has a little dog on it. This one is actually one of the worst ones, but you know, it's got a little bit bumpy right there. Could there have been a better way to do it? Probably, but you know what? This is fun and it's fast and it does outline it. So The other ones, they're not quite as lumpy. It seems like where the little glue paint stuff was on top of the felt, it was very smooth, but when it was on top of the flannel here, it stayed more opaque. But, you know, they're cute. So anyway, I need to get one stocking that has an applique on it, one that is plain. Put those together, sew around the outside edges. They are giving us, on this one, it looks like a 3/8 inch seam allowance. If I can find my ruler, I will verify that. Here is my ruler. So, no, it is a 1/2 inch. Okay, so they're doing 1/2 inch seam allowance on the stockings. So I'm just going to take some time, do all 6 of my greens and all 6 of my linings. I wanted to show you something, and it might just be my machine, but felt wants to stretch a lot. Let me turn this other light on. Okay, felt wants to stretch a lot, and to help it, you know, behave a little bit better, I have found that up here on the top of your machine, there should be some kind of a knob or something above the presser foot, and I found that if I lessen that, you know, unscrew it a little bit, so it takes some of the pressure off of this foot, it seems to travel better so that it doesn't want to stretch out one side or another. If you have a specialty foot like a walking foot, or I've got a roller foot, you know, those are always fun, or something that you want to try, go for it. The cool thing about felt though is because it's not woven, it's not knitted, it's just felted, you can kind of stretch it out and you can kind of smush it together to make it work. So, you know, if things aren't matching up exactly, just, you know, move the edge of the fabric over, give a little tug and it will. Okay, so now that I have them stitched, what I need to do is make some clips wherever there's a curve. So right around here where there's this curve, around the toe where I have a curve here that's going to need to open up. I'm just, you know, clipping it 3 inch or so around the heel. And I'm only clipping up to within about 1/16 of an inch of the stitching line. I don't want to go all the way to it, but enough that it's going to flex. So I was just thinking, that's the way the instructions want. I'm actually going to just pink these. Here they are. I think that I had a little bit of bulk in here, and I think that if I just pink this whole thing so that it is with about half of the original seam allowance, so about 1/4 inch left, that's actually going to give me all of the flex I need and less bulk in there. So that's going to be my new plan. This one is the way the instructions say, which works fine. You know, if you don't have pinking shears, go for it. But this is what I'm going to do now for the rest of them. I was cutting these out and I was thinking about the calendar and what to do in the little Christmas countdown calendar for cats. I was thinking, you know, I've got all these little bags I use for buttons and things, getting those and putting a daily dose of catnip in each one, you know, and then putting those out. I think that that could be fun and keep my cats stoned the whole month of December, but, you know, they would be happy. So I might work on that later on. You never know. Okay, so now I need to turn my lining stocking right side out. Okay, and I'm going to leave my green ones, my main stocking, inside out. And what I need to do is slide my inside out stocking inside my lining one. So I'm going to have to like really smush it in there so that you're putting the wrong side of this one up against the wrong side of the lining. So let's see how we can do this. I'm going to just smush it in there because I don't think we need to worry about it being, you know, perfectly flat, because we're just going to flip it in just a bit. So I'm going to try to flatten out my felt seam allowances, and so that they will, you know, lay a little bit flatter up against my lining one here. Come on. Okay, so getting those two matched up first, and then let's just smush this in here and match up everything in the middle. And I need to sew this all the way around. Do they give us a seam allowance? I don't think they do. I'm going to guess, you know, the same as the other, which was about 1/2 inch. Okay, so I need to go to my sewing machine and sew all the way around here. Don't leave any opening, just sew all the way around. So while I'm doing this, I'm thinking, you know, it would be very easy to make your own little silhouette piece, you know, for the applique. Just like if you wanted a breed specific one, like say Doberman or something like that, you could just print off a picture from the internet and use that as your pattern, you know, to cut out around. And there's also a million ways that you can attach the applique. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, but why don't you just stitch it on by hand and embroider it and do a cute little stitch on the edge and maybe throw sequins around and things. And you know what? Those are fun ideas, but I need to keep telling myself those were ideas for September, Marie. Not middle December, Marie. Middle December, Marie just needs a quick fix to get this done right now. But if next year, September, Marie wants to go over the top, you know, and have a long-haired cat for one and a short-haired cat for another and everything like that, yeah, sure, go for it then. But right now it's crunch time. Okay, they are all done. Well, not done, but that step is. So you don't honestly need this pattern to be able to do this. Just trace around some other stocking that you have, you know, and make up your own little pattern. So I need to make the loops that are going to go on all of these for hanging. And the instructions say cut a ribbon 6 inches long. And I am using an extra piece of stretch lace. I'm just going to cut 6 of those that are about the right length, you know. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So what you need to do is get a little piece of lace or ribbon or whatever, fold it in half, and then on the back side here, I need to put it up, right up here, and put a little row of stitching straight across. All right, so I've got them all sewn on, you know, like so. And I need to work on my cuffs. Now on the instructions, I think they're using a regular fabric and they're wanting you to turn it up and under and stitch it across here. And I just don't feel like doing that. You know, the way that my fabric is here, it's got this suede looking polyester stuff on the back. Ignore that. That's just a line I drew. It'll erase as soon as I put some heat on it. I'm going to skip that. So what I need to do is sew the ends together here. Just put the 2 ends together and clip them here. And I believe, let me see here. Yeah, it looks like they have 1/2 inch seam allowance on the sides there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to all of them so that when I flip it right side out, I think it's going to be fine. But if your fabric has a wonky edge or it's a thinner fabric or something, yeah, go ahead and fold it up and stitch it just to give it a nice edge. I wanted to show you I'm using my little double ring foot here. Not necessary, but it's fun. I think I bought this on the 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐞 catalog. And they kind of travel over it like snowmobile tracks or something similar. And so they help to keep thick, troublesome fabrics in line. So I was just going to show you because I think that they're kind of cool and a little bit unusual. But for things like this where you got a crazy nap against a crazy nap and it's going to want to just really work itself in a bad state, sometimes a specialty foot is nice just to save your sanity. So if you can see, what I usually do is do them just in sequence, one after another here. Get it started, you know, do a little backup stitch. And then it's important, especially something like this, to hold it together. I'm trying to do this without knocking my camera totally off. And if you get to the end and things look a little out of sorts, just match up the edges, smush it all together, and hold it still while it goes through. Do a little back up at the end, and then you can keep on going. So I just wanted to show that to you because she's kind of a fun little foot. Okay, so now I'm going to take my little cuff, and it is right side in, you know, inside out here, and I'm slipping it over the top. I'm going to line up the seam with my back over here where I have that ribbon. You could probably put the seam at the other side if you wanted to, but you know, I'm in the, just pulling all of this out so it's going to match up around the top edge. Putting more little clips on there, and I'm going to sew it again around this top edge with about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, just going all the way around here. All right, so I've got it sewed all the way around here, and now I just need to turn this whole thing right side out. So let's see how she does. Got the lining layer inside. Let me pull this toe out here. Get the lining pushed into the toe. That's a tricky one here. Okay. And then I can turn down my cuff. And I'm going to raise it enough that none of the lining shows. So it looks like that. And here's my little hanging loop. And there you go. There is one stocking. I have the other ones already turned, so these are ready to go. I need to go ahead and get started on my little bag and its pom-poms now, and then we'll be all set. I'm about to get started on my bag, and I just realized that you also need a lining cut for the bag. So I'm just gonna stick this on another piece of black flannel and cut 2 of these out, and then we'll be ready to go. Okay, so I got that done. I'm just going to move this piece over here out of the way. On the pattern piece, there are 2 little circles on each side. I need to mark where those are because when we stitch this together, on my felt part, I need to leave those open because that is going to be the casing where the little drawstring goes through. Okay, so I need to flip this one over so it is right sides together, I believe. Yes, right sides together. Put this back on top. Get my little heat erasable white pen and fill in those little circles. And then what I'm going to need to do is, it looks like, again, 1/2 inch seam allowance, stitch from the edge to the first circle, and then stitch from the second circle down, over, and back up here. So basically the whole edge, but leaving this and this little space open. Alrighty, so I'm going to trim off my seam allowance in my bottom corners here, just to take that bulk out. So we're just going to leave the rest of this as is, and now I need to get my lining piece. I just noticed the next instruction is to press all of these seams open. Well, I'll give it a shot. I think what I'll do is put my sleeve roll inside of it and then just press these open, you know, like so. I don't know how well I'm going to get the very corners and the very bottom, but we'll do the best I can. Okay, so I got the sides pressed open pretty well. The bottom is a little iffy. I got the middle, but the very corners, my little pressing mitt I could get in there got up so far, but I wasn't going to get my fingers in there and press up against those. So, you know, I'm just going to leave it. For this type of a project, that's fine. So for the lining, what I want to do is make sure I've got my piece the right way. And yeah, this is the right way. Okay, so I need to sew. I don't have to worry about these openings here on the lining. Just come all the way down, over, and back up, leaving the top open. Alrighty, so my bag is stitched. I am going to turn it right side out now. Okay, my lining, I should say, my bag is still inside out. And just like for the stockings, what I need to do is put the bag itself inside of the lining piece. And I'm going to open up the seam allowance up here of my lining and match that up. Okay. Pin it, and I'm going to, after I have everything matched up here, stitch it all the way around at about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, so that is done. I'm actually turning it right side out right now. The instructions want you to do this next step with it inside out, which is draw the little lines of stitching for the casing. But I want to do it where I can actually see what the final stitching is going to look like. So let me get my ruler here. Remember on the green version, there's a little opening here. I'm going to put a little line at the top and the bottom of that opening, okay, to use that as a guideline. And over here, the same thing, little lines at the top and the bottom, because from the lining side you can't see that, you know. So then just put my ruler here and connect the lines. First my top ones over here. I think I can see that. I hope you can. Okay, so there's my top line. Then I'm going to do the same thing, connect these bottom lines, and I'll do the same thing on the back also. Before I stitch, I'm just going to put some pins down the very middle of that casing just to hold the lining and the outside fabric in the right position. Okay, so now I'm going to run this around my sewing machine, do a stitch all the way around on the top line, and then a stitch all the way around on the bottom line. What I need to do right now is go ahead and get a little drawstring, and we have some little white pom-pom balls that are going to go in it. But before I can put my drawstring through, I need to put the little cuff around the top. So it's going to be the same thing like on the stockings where they want you to hem the bottom, you know, fold it in half so you can sew that one seam allowance like I did before with the real curvy presser foot with the little rings on it. That's what I'm going to be doing there. They want you to hem the bottom. I don't feel like I need to hem the bottom with this stuff, so I am not going to. And then sew it on exactly the same way that we did with the stockings. Okay, so now that this is sewn on all the way around, I'm going to go ahead and turn it right side out one more time. It's a very soft bag. It's very nice. Okay, the cuff is going to get folded all the way over like this, but I need to kind of keep an eye on where this casing is, which is going to get hidden by the cuff, so I'm just going to leave it folded up for right now while I get that done. There were 2 little circles, actually 4 little circles, 2 for each side, that I've cut out. And basically they're going to want you to gather it so it cinches into a circle and stuff it with some kind of a batting or something in there. I am going to just do this by hand so I can get very widely spaced stitches. You know, with a needle and thread I think will be a lot easier. Trying to gather this with a gathering stitch on the sewing machine I think would be a nightmare right now. So let me get some quilting thread, because, you know, we want something fairly strong. I'm just going to use a hand quilting thread and a needle and put some nice like 1/4 inch wide basting stitches all the way around. Now the bag wants you to use 2 pieces of cording that is 42 inches wide, or long I should say. Well, look at that, it came off right there. So that is what I'm using. I am just going to go ahead and tie a nice knot at the end of each one. I think that's going to help it not fray, but also give the pom-pom something big to grab onto, you know. So let me go ahead and tie the knots. What am I using here? 3mm cording. Macrame cord. Okay, and I need to fish my cording through my casing before I put my pom-poms on it. So, because you know, pom-poms will not go through here. I feel like it's caught on that fold. There it is. All right, so I'm going to see if I can catch it with the knot side, but it needs to come all the way through here and then turn around and go back. So I have 2 ends on one side like this and 2 ends on the other side like that. Okay, I did the first one with a knot. I figured out that taking the knot out, just putting Scotch tape around it here, and then hooking it, the hook of my puller, to my macrame cord through the Scotch tape actually pulls it through a whole lot smoother. Plus, with the understanding that you're going to have another piece of cord already going through that little casing, you know, because you're going to end up with 2 cords in each casing. That works out a lot smoother. Okay, so now that my strings are in, I'm back to the pom-poms. And you can see I've got my quilting thread doubled here. Just taking some fairly big gathering stitches so that then when I pull it, you know, it's going to cinch up nicely. So let me just keep on going all the way around here first. Got a bag of some batting scraps here that I'm going to use for stuffing. So while it's still fairly open, I'm going to crunch up, well, that looks a little big. Crunch up this little guy here and put it inside. Oopsie. Cinch it in, and I need to get one of the ends of my cord in there also. That's why I have a big knot. I'm hoping that I can keep that big knot inside here. Cinch this all the way through, and then I'm going to stitch it together, and I'm going to be stitching through that cord and then through the fabric on either side a few times so that it'll want to stay. Okay, so let me just do that a few times in one direction and then a few times in the other direction. And I think if I go through that cording at least once in either direction, I think that it should hold pretty well. So let me get this finished. Looks like I need to go this direction also to get that tucked in, but it is going to make a cute little pom-pom. All right, I got my little pom-poms on. These are actually really cute. I might use this technique for like on hats and things like that over the winter, because I like the way that turned out. So if I go ahead and fold down my little cuff here, and I ended up putting the seam allowance for the cuff on the back side. I just didn't want to have that seam allowance in addition to everything else on the sides here. And there we go. So if I pull both of these, it's going to cinch it up. Lovely, lovely. This has been really fun. I needed a different kind of project like this. So let me go ahead and set them out, show you how they look. And thank you so much for watching. Obviously, I'm not going to be trying these on because I can't try it on, but I hope that you have a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and all of that.